Hi, and welcome back to another one of our videos here from Principia Prep. My name once again is Ed Zamora, and today we're going to discuss some of the common errors that I see every year from students sending out applications for admissions. I've reviewed over the last 20 years, probably somewhere around 20, maybe 25,000 essays, applications, resumes, so on and so forth. So today I'm going to give you my top 5 different things I look for, red flags, common errors that you want to avoid to make yourself stand out. Now, before we talk about those areas, let's talk about the landscape that I see admissions in nowadays. Just to give you an idea, every year, somewhere between 3 to 4 million students graduate and head off to college. This number has increased year after year as far as the amount of students graduating high school, as far as the percentage of them going off to college. So each year you're going in applying for college, the application pool is actually more competitive than the year before, typically speaking. As you can see here, at the more higher level of colleges, it's not uncommon to see acceptance rates at levels of 5, 6, even 7 or 8% in many cases for the higher level colleges, the Ivies, the top tier schools, etc. Now, one thing that most people don't know, or I guess aren't aware of, these numbers are all inclusive. So if you're a regular student, assume this number is basically half. And why am I saying that the number you're seeing of acceptance rate, let's say for Cornell, around 10%, should be half and closer to 5 or 6%? The reason being is because typically 40 to 50% of the students coming in are usually taken up by spots such as legacy, athletes, as well as big donors. So unfortunately, the reality is a lot of those spots, good, bad, or indifferent, will be taken up at least 40%, if not more, by this group of students. Now, that being said, let's start talking about the first of the 5 errors I see. Now, the first red flag or error I see as far as common things made by students is either laziness or complacency. Because to me, typically this is essentially the death nail in your application, especially if you're considering higher level colleges. Let me give you an example. Spell check should be used by every single student, no matter how brilliant you are, how intelligent, if you have a perfect SAT score, irrelevant. We all make mistakes, so you have to use spell check. But you want to make sure you're using spell check the right way, because spell check can be both your friend or your enemy. And let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. About 5 or 6 years ago, I had helped out a student. I was reading one of their essays they had turned in for me to review. And within the first few seconds, I was thinking this is going to be an incredible essay, probably something completely off the normal track of essays I usually read. And I read somewhere between 800 to 1,000 essays every year. So when I first got this essay, I looked at it and actually had a title to it. The title actually said soccer couch, like the couch you sit on. At first, I thought this is going to be a great essay, because I've never heard anybody writing an essay about soccer couches. I didn't even know soccer couches existed. Maybe this was some kind of amazing sport I wasn't aware of. When I got about halfway down the essay, about 2 paragraphs down, I realized that the essay was not about soccer couch. There was no couch involved at all. The essay was about their soccer coach. Problem here was I was led to be going in one direction by the essay, and then I went in a completely other direction. And it wasn't some kind of change of pace or some kind of big surprise or something in there that made me think, wow, this is an amazing turn of events here in the essay. It actually was a letdown for me, to be honest with you. Now, I read the rest of the essay and thought it was a very good essay. It was well written, grammatically well done. Now, this wasn't a bad situation in the sense that we caught it before we sent it out. But if this essay had gone in, I could definitely see an admissions officer, if it was between this student and somebody else, probably letting that student's application go into the decline pile because of the fact that it was such a glaring error that nobody had picked up, but probably more than likely the admissions officer would have definitely picked up this error. Now, the easy way for that student to have avoided this is, number 1, you always have to reread your essays. Number 2, you always have to have somebody else reread your essay, an English teacher, a guidance counselor, your parents, your uncles, your aunts, older sibling. Someone should be rereading your essays to make sure to catch these different things that maybe you are missing. Also, sticking with the essays, when it comes to the essay, a lot of these different schools will ask you to write similar essays for their specific essay prompts, such as, why do you want to come to our college? Or what drew you to our university? Or what is it about our college that intrigues you? If you're writing these essays and you're electing to take one of the other essays you've already written for another school that's very similar, then what you want to make sure to do is go to your computer, and after you reread the essay and looked at everything over, go on there, click on the finder to find the specific name of that college to wipe that name out all the time throughout the essay. Because I've seen students submit, or about to submit, let's call it that way, about to send in an essay, and it ends with something such as, I loved my visit to Lehigh, and I can't wait to be part of Lafayette's 2024 class. This is a huge error. You cannot send this kind of essay in because obviously Lehigh and Lafayette compete with each other. I've also seen a student about to send an essay in that says, I love my tour at Duke University. So happy I did early decision. Can't wait to be part of the 2024 class of Tar Heels. Now, hopefully everyone picks up the error there. Duke University is not the Tar Heels. Duke University is the Blue Devils. North Carolina is the Tar Heels. So not only did you get the mascot wrong, you chose probably their number one most hated rival. These are the errors you want to avoid like the plague, because these are just small little issues that may have been made because you were taking so much time rereading the essay, rereading it, and it's just overdone to the point where you were exhausted. But that's why you have somebody else reread it, and make sure that individual realizes the difference between Duke and Chapel Hill to make sure you don't make any grievous errors like this. Remember, you've been working for 3 years to get to this point in time, from AP courses, honors, AP, dual credit courses, extra time at the school, all the homework you've done, extracurricular activities, SAT, ACT, the prep, everything you've done to this point in time. Do not get tripped up at the end. Now let's go into number 2 of the red flags or the common mistakes I see. And this is typically done in the activity section. And this isn't such a glaring one as the one we just talked about before, but it does look as if you're being complacent or lazy or just not paying attention or just doing things way overboard. Let me give you an example. You're doing your activity section or you're writing your resume and you're putting everything together, and when you're plugging everything in, you're not checking your hours or your weeks spent. You're estimated, and you're indicating, depending on the amount of time you're spending on your activities, you're spending somewhere around 160, 170. I've even seen students say they spend 180, 190 hours a week doing all their activities. That might seem like a good thing because it says, wow, look at this student doing a lot of stuff. This is the kind of student we want. It's not what it's expressing. What it's actually expressing is what the student is doing here is either way over the top or they're just lying. And this is why that comes up to be. Because if you're indicating you have 170 or 180 hours a week of volunteer work or community service or sports, etc., problem is there's only 168 hours in a week. So it's virtually impossible for this to be true. So you want to make sure on your activities, your volunteer community service, on those sections specifically, the amount of weeks spent and the amount of time spent makes sense. Also, sticking with the activity section. Another error I see on the activity section is when students generalize an activity or put something on there and no one else but the people in your town or your high school know what that activity is. Let me give you an example. I've had students write things such as the Community Express or Sam's Kitchen or Linda's Place. Now, while you might know what these different locations are and these different organizations are, anyone outside of the town that you live in or your community or outside of those activities more than likely has no idea what those activities are. So if you want, when you put in the name of the organization, make sure to be more detailed about it below, indicating if this is a community service situation, a volunteer situation, a leadership situation, basically what you're doing there, as well as give a good description about what the organization is and your role within the organization. Unless it's something like the Red Cross, or unless it's something like Habitat for Humanity, or something of that magnitude, something nationwide, they're probably not going to understand what it is. Be more detailed. Remember, you want to give as much of yourself as possible on these things to help build that relationship with the admissions officer. Now, the third of the 5 errors that I see is definitely one of the most egregious ones I see across the board. And it happens more often than not. Individuals' parents, the students' parents, want to help out, which is perfectly fine. But one of the biggest errors I see, and it's probably one of the quickest ways an admissions officer is going to decline you, is if they think you didn't write the essay. Now, when it comes to having help with the essay, let's start with the first part of this I see. If you're thinking about buying an essay online, the worst idea you can possibly make. Reason being is because there are organizations online that will sell you essays about anything. Problem is, they also sell you and every other student who wants that essay will be sold that essay, the same exact one that you're turning in. And if an admissions officer reads one essay one day and 2 days later reads the same exact essay with a different name, they're going to reject both students. That's what's going to happen, more than likely. So buying online, terrible idea. Let's go to the next phase of the essay as far as getting help. When it comes to the essay, parents, college advisors, all these people, teachers, guidance counselors, every one of these people can provide the student with insight. It's not a problem. The problem becomes when that individual, that person writes the essay. Now, providing assistance is not a problem. However, you want to make sure the essay is written by the student. In 20 years of doing this, in the amount of essays I read, I can guarantee you, because I have a lot of friends, a lot of colleagues that work in the admissions office, and almost all of them can tell if they've been in the world of admissions, reviewing essays and applications for at least one season, 1 year essentially, who's written the essay, whether it was a student or the parent. And I'm going to give you a quick little insider secret how that happens. Every time I do a consultation for a family, I sit down with them and I'm looking at the essays or I'm looking at the applications and stuff like that. The first question I'm asking is, what high school is the student from? The second question I'm asking is, what's the student's cumulative GPA? The third question I'm asking, what's that student's class rigor? Do we have AP classes, IB, college credit on here? Do we have dual credit courses? Is it just a regular student not taking any honors or above? The fourth question I'm asking is, what is their SAT or ACT score? If we don't have that, what's their PSAT score? These 4 factors are the same 4 factors that are used by admissions office to determine what level of essay they should expect. Now, I've seen in the past, to give you an example, I had a family that asked me to look at their essays, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. The family had a student who was a B average, honor student, SAT score around 1,000 points or so. So roughly nationwide average student. Nothing good, nothing bad, just right in the middle average. I read the essay, and this was the main essay, and within the first 2 sentences, I already knew the student did not write this essay. I then finished off the first paragraph just to kind of get a sense of where this essay was going. But by the time I got to the end of the first paragraph, before I even thought about reading the rest of it, I asked the parents and the student who wrote the essay. This student was applying to fairly difficult schools as far as his academic track and what he has as far as an academic profile, let's call it. And the reason I asked the family who wrote the essay was because I knew automatically before I even read the rest of it that if this student sent the application in, that he was going to get rejected. It was almost a guarantee. After a little bit back and forth, the family finally came out after I said to them, if you send this in, I guarantee you every one of the schools from your REACH school list and up are going to deny you. They're just all going to deny you. They then asked me why, and I said, the reality is this essay is written by somebody who is at a higher level academic, more than likely a grad student or somebody who's gone through grad school. At which point they indicated, yes, the student did receive help, which then turned out that the student's essay was written by this other individual who was a cousin who was a grad student from MIT. Now, it might seem to you like a great idea to have a college coach or a college advisor to write your college essay, but the reality is, if it doesn't align, if it doesn't fit with your application profile, academically speaking, that's a red flag for the admissions office that either this person had purchased this essay in some way or this person had somebody else write this essay, more likely a parent. Now, we all want to help out as parents, myself as well. I want to help my child as well as much as possible when they start applying to college as well. But you want to make sure that you're providing assistance to a certain point. Because at a certain point, if you help too much, you might actually be hindering the opportunity for your student to be accepted to that college, to be honest with you. Colleges are always looking for reason to reject applications because they have so many applications out there. Do not make this error. Now, the number 4 error, I guess, red flag I see when it comes to applications, this also happens for transfer students as well as seniors in high school applying to freshman year. Do not put anyone down. Do not put any organization down. Do not emphasize something negatively to either bolster yourself or the college you're considering applying to. Now, this typically happens when you have a question on the essays, specifically on the students' college-specific essay questions, where they'll ask you if you have a grade less than a B average. They may ask you, why do you have a grade less than the B average in any one of your courses? And I see students write things such as, the professor I had was a terrible professor, or things such as, unfortunately the school did not help me or provide me with the assistance I needed to be able to succeed. The last thing you want to do is throw anyone under the bus, whether it be a teacher, a professor, a high school in general, because it doesn't look good. It just doesn't. You want to provide them with a more direct, more insight answer than blame somebody else. This is not going to help you. The way I would typically suggest is if you had an issue with a class is highlight the positive aspects. You can indicate, unfortunately, for whatever reason, I tried my best to do well, but I was only able to get a C. However, I went every day before class. I came every day after class. And while this doesn't reflect, I believe, my academic progression or my ability that's going to happen at your college, I want to make you aware that this semester I have a B average. Or over the summer, I took a course in this at the community college and got an A. So this is the level of type of student you're going to be getting, someone that's not going to give up. Someone that's going to find a way to achieve what they need to achieve. These are more positive ways to answer this kind of question. Another way to consider this too is when you're writing the essay specifically to the college. I've seen certain things such as students writing, I visited a dozen schools in Boston and your college is the only one that stood out. This is another one of those kind of, you're putting off the other school and saying, you are the only one for me. You don't want to do this. Remember, there's always a positive approach to take everything, especially when it comes to the written stuff. Whether you're talking about essays for the main essay, or you're talking about supplemental essays, or even emails to the admissions office. You want to always have a positive frame of mind when you're writing anything towards the college. Now let's talk about the 5th error, and this is a big one for me, and it's pretty much a big one for everyone across the board, I think, from every guidance counselor I talk to, every admissions officer I know as a colleague and friend and so on and so forth, is deadlines, deadlines, deadlines. The first deadline you don't want to miss is for scholarship consideration. There are a lot of colleges out there that have regular or rolling deadlines in February, March, or even April that have specific scholarship deadlines of December 1st. So make sure if you're applying regular or rolling or later on after the new year is turned that you're not missing any scholarship deadlines. Easy thing to do, contact the admissions office, let them know you're applying later on, but are there any scholarship deadlines I should be aware of? So real easy way to make sure you don't miss any scholarship opportunities early on. Another big error when it comes to deadlines is waiting to the last minute or turning in your application late. Now this is probably the worst death knell of all, especially if you're competing for a high level competitive college. If you turn your application late to a top tier school or a school that's a reach school for you, more than likely they're not going to accept you. Let's think of it this way. It's the day of prom and no one's asked you to prom. Let's just say prom is 4 hours away. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, someone comes up to you and says, you know what? I've been waiting till the last possible minute to ask you to prom. I've been waiting around to see what else is available. Now I want to know, with 3 or 4 hours to go, do you want to go to prom with me? That's the impression you're giving the admissions office if you turn your application in late or the day of the deadline. That's essentially what you're doing. And this is even worse if you had indicated to the admissions representative at open houses or college fairs or within your essay that this is your dream school, which everyone talks about. If you tell me this is your dream school, this is where you want to be, and you've done tours and everything else, and we build a relationship as an admissions officer, and you've waited to the last possible minute to send your application in, this looks terrible. Because there's been hundreds, if not thousands of students spots taken already as far as acceptances. And now you've limited yourself to the last possible moment, showing me as an admissions officer that maybe this wasn't your dream school. Maybe this wasn't the place you want to be. And at the same time, not only provide yourself with the worst possible situation where other students have been admitted already, so there's minimal spots available, you're showing the admissions office that you care less about this school than probably anywhere else. Now, there is one example of this where there is an exemption, and that's where your student has to talk to the admissions officer about certain criteria, things that have happened. Maybe you weren't able to take the SATs on time or the ACT on time. Maybe you're waiting for your first quarter grades to come in or first half grades to come in. Those are all valid reasons to talk to the admissions office where you want to go, let them know the application is coming in, but we're waiting for these other different documents, different pieces, different things to complete your application. That is perfectly fine. Now, those are the top 5 errors I see. I'm going to give you guys one more. Senioritis. This happens where your student's been accepted to college. Typically, it's January or February. Half the year is left, and the student goes from an A, B student, and they just tank. And classes start becoming C's and D's and sometimes even F's. I have seen, and I've had colleagues tell me, they have accepted students and then rescinded the acceptance. The college can take away your acceptance if you start failing classes, if academically you start dropping down way too much. So just maintain your courses, maintain your grades. That way you can head off to college and start the next phase of your life. That being said, thank you for watching our video. Once again, my name is Ed from Principia Prep. On the screen now you see our contact information. If you'd like to see another one of our videos, please click the subscription button. It will notify you of new videos coming out. As well as if you want information about our newsletter, please send us an email.